I got to tell you, I mean, I come from I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I come from a pretty broken family, and
Yeah.
I've had my dad in my life, sort of.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think I had a normal upbringing to the point where I feel like I'm comfortable, um, like saying I'm going to be this kind of dad, I'm going to be this kind of dad. And
Yeah.
I've actually thought about this before, and I'm curious as to what you think, for your own family life. But what kind of father are you going to be?
Mm.
Like for me, my father, to the degree that he's still around in my life, it's different. But when I was growing up, he was very authoritarian.
Yeah.
Um, and there's good things to it and bad things to it. I don't really know much about my dad,
Mm.
other than what he does, and like, how he started doing that and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, which is the bad. But the good thing is that because he was authoritarian and really didn't give me a lot of time to just kind of do my own thing, he got me working really quickly. I started working when I was 10.
Oh.
And so he was an upholsterer. He still is.
Mm.
And so he had me working in his upholstery shop. So instead of having downtime watching TV and that sort of thing, enjoying
Cool.
summer breaks and that sort of thing, I
Mhm.
was working in an upholstery shop and getting my knuckles all bloody and like ripping off old fabric off of. If you don't
Right.
know what upholstery is, it's like one of the original crafts, like
Uh-huh. That's right.
um, where you restore furniture and that sort of thing. So I was working, and
That
I
explains a
remember
lot about
growing
your
up.
restoration of projects, by the
Well,
way.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's also why I went into photography, is because I like to make things.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the bad thing is that I I feel like when I'm gonna raise kids, that's probably gonna come out because
Mm.
you by default go back to the way that you were raised, and you
Mm.
think that's the way that you're gonna raise your kids, right? Like that's what worked for me, therefore I'm gonna do it that way.
Mhm.
And I think I have to like be very careful with that, because there were times where that wasn't really the greatest thing, and it actually pushed me to do things that were more rebellious.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I'm curious, like what what kind of father do you think you're going to be? But also, um all the more if you're experiencing something similar to what I just told you, if whatever viewer is out there, um it really helps to be in a traditional parish, because when you're sitting there in mass, obviously you have to be present, and you have to um, participate in the mass as much as you're able to. Um, but there's a lot of families there,
Yeah.
and there's a couple fathers that I admire from a distance. I don't think I've ever told them, but I observe what they're doing, and I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
And it helps. It really helps to be in a traditional parish that has and fosters the family life, like St. Vitus.
You can
And no
see.
doubt your parish as well.
Oh
As
man, I
well.
like I mean when I say note taking, I mean I especially the guys in my office, right? A lot of them are good Catholics, and so I ask them. I'm like, especially like one of my coworkers there again, his with his four daughters. I'm like, how do you balance that and a marriage, right? Because I can tell this. I'll get to what kind of father I am. First off, I want only sons, and this is why. Because not just because girls are
Easier.
more trouble, but because I know like I have such a soft spot in my heart for if I have daughters.
Yeah.
Like I can. Jen's the one
I
that
can
told me
see
first.
that.
She was like you'd be such a good girl dad, and I was
You
like,
would,
I was
but
like, "Hey."
it would rip your heart out, I think.
Well, the moment they hit 13, it's all over.
Yeah.
The moment they start bringing boys around. Okay, so I think I want to address one thing you said earlier, and I think that it's true that your influence that you get first and foremost is your own father, because that's father to you literally. And I think that some people, they kind of embrace parts of those, and then they reject like wholesale some other swaths. So
Mhm.
I wonder if parts of how you'll be a father also expresses itself in how you are in marriage as well, is what I always wonder. Like I'm a kind of guy like and also the second thing is that it's temperaments as well. So we just learned about the 4 temperaments in pre-Cana, uber
Mhm.
important. I'm sanguine choleric. Jen is choleric melancholic. And so what that essentially means is like my as head of the household, my kind of style, the way that I do it in my cinematography work is like I don't like to just be an authoritarian and just like push things all the time, my way or the highway. I'd much rather put people in place who are competent at their job and let them do competent things, right? So I can tell like my fatherhood style, the way that I see it, the way I try to express it with my nephew is like I don't want to just say my way or the highway, suck it up, buttercup, without giving them like a fair kind of trial
Yeah.
first. I'll still make the decision because that's my choleric side. Like I'll be like, look, this is the way. Of
Right.
course, this is the way. I've always said that in our household for our kids, there's going to be really 2 big commandments. And the first one is that in this household, we honor Christ and his church. And if you want to live in a way that's contrary to that, that's perfectly fine, but we will not live that way in this household. And
Mhm.
the second thing is that your mother is my wife and queen of this household. And you can do a lot of things you cannot talk back to your mother. That'll bring me in uber quick.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that part of me is like, at the same time, like I look forward to a lot of the growing pain activities that you do with your children because without like being an authoritarian, like, and that's how I kind of try to do things with my nephew. Like I want my kids to learn the lessons that I learned, but it wasn't quite the same way with my dad. My dad, my dad's he's a senior analyst of nuclear weapons for the federal government. Uh, he's a spy, is what I call him, but he audited nuclear programs. My dad never really like wrestled with us. We went fishing on occasion, that sort of thing. Now that I'm in my 20s, I have a whole kind of cooler, more I'd say engaged relationship with my dad. My dad was a very good father, very good provider, and very good about teaching me the faith. Um, I'm going to
That's the
take
most important thing.
most important thing. What I'm going
Yeah.
to do is I want my kids to know that I'm a pillar that they can lean on as well. So I want to do activities with my kids. I look forward to teaching my sons and my daughters how to shoot a gun. And I look forward to taking them fishing. And because Jen comes from a broken household, one thing that she's told me, and she doesn't really have a relationship with her father, you know? And for her, she was like, look, the man that I want to marry, I wanted him to have those qualities of good fatherhood because I didn't get that. And what I've realized is that, especially in regards to daughters, is why I think that her saying that I'd be a good girl dad is such a high compliment. Because what I realized is that coming from a broken household, how much difficulty that causes.
It
If your
does. Yeah.
perception, I mean, you know this better than I do, but if your perception of fatherhood is warped in some capacity or is absent, that makes it all the more difficult, it seems, in your spiritual life to cling to God as father because your sense of father is lays out the door. So what does it mean? You know, that's certainly been
Right.
Jen's experience. Um, and so for me, like I've realized like the way that you discipline your sons, the way that you talk to your sons is uber important because I don't want to just be the hammer and sickle. I'll bring down the law, but I also want them to be like, look, like I taught you how to do right. I want you to spread your own wings and fly. And also like I'm training young men here. For daughters, especially like you as father are their first and foremost understanding of how masculine energy and how masculine touch especially should be exhibited. So you train your daughters, you teach your daughters, you instruct your daughters by your own example how to pick good husbands, how not to bring losers home in high school or whatever. You know, no doubt there'll be one or two, but like, you know, how genuinely when you pick a guy that you know is the one, how you're like, yeah, he treats you as you should be treated. And
Mhm.
I look forward to that protective element. I look forward to them being able to talk to me about things, and I want to be that pillar for them. And I really want to be that.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's also having a healthy family life too is a great
Mm,
example for the children to understand what to look for.
yeah. Oh yeah.
If somebody, if they're dating somebody who, hopefully they're not dating like in high school, because you know it's inevitable. It's not going to work out.
Well, I
But
I'm with you, except at the same time, like I do think that it's like they're gonna you ask a girl to a dance or coffee or whatever. I'm like, you gotta get
oh,
heartbroken.
sure, sure,
Yeah, yeah.
sure, sure. But like I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is later on in life, they have a good example of what
Oh
a
yeah.
healthy family dynamic is.
Mm,
And
mm.
they're less prone to make the mistake of marrying
Yeah, a
the
loser.
guy or the woman who's not gonna
Yeah.
help them get that.
Yeah, precisely right.